Watch this.
The first act in the trafficking conduct
unconstitutionally inhibits plaintiffs from providing this assistance.
The legal interpretation of Idaho's abortion trafficking law is now in the hands of a federal appeals court. What they are deciding depends a lot on a few definitions. Thousands of Idahoans are already voting in the May primary. But what if their ballot gave them wrong information? Can there be a do-over in elections? What does it take to be the best in the world? For some Eagle High School band students, it's about banging out a banger of holiday classics.
This doesn't involve the parents. This involves the individual that's attempting to procure or procuring an abortion without the knowledge of a parent. It doesn't cover the parent that takes their child out of state to have an abortion. And recruiting, harboring, and transporting, those are descriptive words. I guess the court would have to decide if the conduct constitutes one of those three things.
Well, that is exactly what the court is deciding. And the legality of Idaho's abortion trafficking law hangs on the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals deciding if those three words, recruiting, harboring, or transporting, as you just heard Senator Todd Lakey talk about, and their connection to a minor getting an abortion in a state where it's legal, whether those words violate sections of the U.S. Constitution or their interpretation of that. Idaho's abortion trafficking law was passed in 2023, and it makes anyone who takes a pregnant girl out of state to get an abortion without her parents' consent a criminal with the possibility of 5 years in prison. It went into effect in May of 2023, and in July, the law saw its first challenge in court. An injunction was granted in November, preventing it from being enforced, and yesterday, it was before the Ninth Circuit Court judges. Andrew Bartline followed the arguments for us today, or looked into them yesterday and today, and this all balances on how the court defines that trafficking and specifically those three descriptors we mentioned.
Yeah, there's a couple pieces to it, that being arguably chief among them, whether those components of this abortion trafficking law criminalize speech or conduct being another piece of that. The state law lists off three verbs to make up what this crime is, and it comes down to recruiting, harboring, or transporting. You're looking at the law right now, and you can notice the terms. It's or, not and. The Ninth Circuit judges interpret that to mean that these actions, when they stand alone as singular, not all three, just one, could violate the law. That matters because the plaintiffs of this lawsuit are two organizations that help pregnant people get abortions. Some of those people are minors in Idaho, and legally they would need to travel out of the state to get that procedure. So at what point does the work that these organizations do cross the line and break the law? Is giving information to a minor considered recruiting? The plaintiffs say the law doesn't just ban conduct, it chills and censors their speech and violates the First Amendment.
Because it regulates only speech and expression that favors abortion. It prohibits plaintiffs from saying things that the state disagrees with. The speech intended to bring about a particular unlawful act has no social value, therefore it is unprotected. And that's precisely the problem with the statute here, Your Honor, is they're not speaking about an unlawful act. They're speaking about a lawful act, abortion that is lawful in the place where it occurs.
The judges press the state's attorney to clarify that line. Exactly when does recruiting, harboring, or transporting stand alone to break the law? The state says each step is just a cog in a larger machine, and it's the action of those steps they want to regulate, not the words.
If there is a connection between a specific minor who is unemancipated, that means under their parents' custody, and an organization that is going to harbor and transport that child to receive an abortion, then yes, that could be recruitment if it's combined with a specific intent element. But that's conduct we're talking about, not speech.
Do you need to actually have the abortion, or do you only need to make arrangements for an abortion?
The abortion has to be procured. It means that the abortion is done, the child is terminated.
So unless an abortion is actually carried out, we've learned that the law would not be violated. Further, the plaintiffs argue that the organization's work historically is an expression of supporting people who want abortions. And the conduct of doing that action, the plaintiffs say, is connected with the speech of supporting that action. The Ninth Circuit judges were pleased with the arguments, Brian. They said they appreciate it from both sides. And so we'll come back and see how that ruling works out and exactly drawing the line and if those can stand alone or if all three need to work together in conjunction. We'll see what they decide.
Yeah, they hung up a little bit on that word "or," and
Yep.
when the state's attorney used the word "and" a lot, including those things, they were like, "Wait a second, is it and or is it or?"
It's funny how they kept interrupting each other because he'd use the word "and." They're like, no, the law says "or."
Right.
So, and that's kind of what they were trying to figure out. Spend a significant amount of time figuring out the difference.
And the
between those two.
constitutionality they're also trying to figure out is the 14th Amendment. Am I correct with that? This equal protection
That's another
clause.
piece of that as
Yeah.
well. Yes.
All right. Well, again, we'll have to wait and see how they decide on this. Thank you, Andrew. May primary election 13 days away from today, but some have already voted thanks to the option of early voting, which is offered in 30 counties across Idaho. And that began this week. There's also absentee ballots. Those are already being turned in. Hawaii County is one of those counties with both options. However, one of the options voters are deciding in the Gem State's second largest county by land contained a minor mistake, conflicting information on a levy, which includes hundreds of thousands of dollars, a difference apart. The Hawaii County Clerk's Office was on that mistake rather quickly, but it does beg the question, what happens if the ballot language is incorrect? Joe Paris has the answer.
It would take an intricate eye to spot, but in this wall of text and numbers lies a little mistake. $300,000 difference in the ask for a school levy in Hawaii County. This is a sample ballot for voters in the district. Like so many other schools around Idaho, the Bruno-Grandview Joint School District is asking voters there to approve a supplemental levy. But what is the ask for? The text of the ballot has the math for a $350,000 levy, but the text of the question is asking voters for $650,000. So which one is it? We reached out to the school district to clarify our election guide, and we found that the question is for $650,000, clearly detailed in this official ballot question from the school district. So what happened here? I connected with Angela Barkle, the clerk in Hawaii County, and they explained to me that they were already on the case. In April, the mistake was found, and quickly they had ballots reprinted without any interruption in the process. Barkle writes to me, quote, "We had to mail out 9 new absentee ballots after spoiling the incorrect ones. We just neglected to correct the sample ballot on our webpage. Thanks for pointing it out."
Really trying to determine, will that impact the election? And then we have remedies on what we can do after the fact to try and correct an issue that comes up.
Idaho's Secretary of State Phil McGrain says the Hawaii County question seems to be solved. But if it wasn't, Idaho actually has a pretty new law dealing with election mistakes. It involves judicial review.
We worked through a new process with the legislature to allow for judicial review. So the county clerk or the Secretary of State's office, if there's ever an issue like this in an election and we have a close election where it may impact the outcome, we can actually go to a judge to have them review the election, see what happened, make any corrections if needed, and the judge has the authority to issue a new election.
In fact, the United States Congress took note of how Idaho's judicial review law played out in Jerome County just last fall.
The House Administration Committee has a lot of interest in elections right now, and so they had gotten wind of this issue playing out in Jerome County, and the letter really just highlighted and said, hey, Idaho, great job. This is a model the rest of the country should be looking at in terms of being able to spot a problem, elevate the problem, and get it resolved in a way that everyone can feel satisfied. I think what makes it unique about what we have here is it didn't require one of the candidates in that race to contest the election. That path has been there for a long time, but that means a candidate has to hire a lawyer and do some other steps. Now we've taken it where, as election officials, we can actually elevate these issues to make sure we get the results correct as well.
It is always possible a slim margin could call attention to the Hawaii County levy vote. It is not likely, but McGrain says transparency is king in the conversation.
I think everything looks like it's been resolved. I think the clerk was very quick to react and resolve the problem. So it looks like it's going to be a smooth election in this case, but it's really important. We are making note of it, and if for some reason that this question is razor thin, everybody involved will be looking closely at this and whether we do need to go out for judicial review.
Elections are human run, and we have inherent human error. McGrain believes transparency and solid laws are conducive to creating community trust.
Mistakes are going to happen. We try really hard to put in control so that they won't. Every now and then it's human beings in the process, and we work to resolve them. And so it's good for us to have processes built in where we are transparent and that no one is trying to say like this is completely flawless, because it just doesn't make sense for that to be the case. But we want to be open and transparent with the public to really build confidence in Idaho's elections.
So less than 2 weeks away from the May primary, and I mentioned the election guide. You can find information on all the May primary ballot questions in our voter guide. It is now available at ktvb.com. Even easier, you can text the word VOTE, V-O-T-E, to the text line, 208-321-5614. If you send that, you will get a link instantaneously right to your phone. We also have a guide in Spanish, so you can check that out as well. And make sure to tell your friends and family, because, Brian, on Election Day, when you show up in the booth and you go to do your voting, it makes it a lot easier if you know what's on there before you get there.
Absolutely. All right, thanks, Joe.
You got it.
Graphic images of JJ and Tylee's remains were shown in Chad Daybell's triple murder trial today. And we want to warn you, what you're about to hear in today's 411 is graphic. Here's Abby Davis.
Jurors were shown several photos of Tylee Ryan's remains and the body of her 7-year-old brother, JJ Vallow, in day 19 of Chad Daybell's triple murder trial. He's accused of murdering JJ and Tylee, as well as his late wife, Tammy. Ada County forensic pathologist who did JJ and Tylee's autopsy, Dr. Warren, said a white plastic bag wrapped in tape covered JJ's head. Duct tape covered his mouth and bound his hands and ankles. He also had bruises on his upper arms and scratches on his neck.
It could also be from JJ himself trying to get the bag off of his head. I wasn't there.
Idaho State Police forensic scientist Tara Martinez matched finger and palm prints on the plastic around JJ to Lori's late brother, Alex Cox. Dr. Warren determined JJ died by asphyxia. The doctor said Tylee's remains came in multiple bags containing her organs, charred tissue, and bone. Warren determined Tylee's cause of death as homicide by unspecified means. Court starts again tomorrow. A retired professional wrestler pleaded not guilty in the death of Christopher Tapp. Tapp spent decades in an Idaho prison before being exonerated. He died from a head injury in October at a party on the Las Vegas Strip. Investigators initially believed Tapp died from a fall. They later learned he was in an argument with 45-year-old Daniel Radomir. Radomir, a former congressional candidate, was arrested back in March, but is free on a $200,000 bond. The Steelheads are back at home tonight for the second round of playoffs. They split games 1 and 2 with the Kansas City Mavericks in Kansas City. Now they're back home for games 3 through 5 in the best-of-7 series. Puck drops at 7 at Idaho Central Arena. You can also watch the game on Idaho's 24/7. That's channel 7.2. And that's the 411 on the 208. I'm Abby Davis.
Well, there are world champions in our midst. Not in any sort of sport you might be familiar with, but still, a world championship is a world championship. Last month, the Eagle High School Percussion Ensemble made a trip to Dayton, Ohio for an international competition. And they were the first school from Idaho to compete in this contest. Well, that wasn't the only first for this band. The halls and walls at Eagle High School are blanketed by banners and trophies, a testament to the tons of football and basketball and softball championships dating back decades. But those state titles
Let's go from the top
will have to make room
to letter C
for a world one.
All right, here we go.
In the music room, Rob Sullins puts the percussion ensemble through its paces.
Do the accelerando and make sure we reach that top tempo.
Being in this band isn't just about keeping the beat. It's about hitting the right targets and shaping the sound. But also,
a major part of it is just like performing, because you want to be able to watch something and enjoy it. There's a lot of like movement and just like communicating and stuff. It's fun.
Rob came to Eagle High 3 years ago from Texas, where band plays second fiddle only to the state sport of football when it comes to intensity.
I was just like, oh, this would be fun. And then after doing it for a little while, I was like, hey, we could do this little thing called WGI.
This little thing called WGI.
You are on the world stage.
Is Winter Guard International.
Let's make it happen.
A world championship competition for percussionists.
This is the highest level that you can kind of compete percussively.
It's a level the Mustangs have been working towards the last 2 years. Then, a few months ago, they qualified with the help of an audition video, but without ever performing in public.
So the Thursday before we left for the trip was the first time the students left that room to go perform in the gym down the hall. And then our literal first contest was prelims at WGI.
Like going 0 to 60 in seconds.
0 to a million is more like it, yeah, for sure.
In April, after raising tens of thousands of dollars in just 3 months,
Yeah, it's crazy.
they headed to Ohio.
It's like incredible just going there.
To compete in the Scholastic Concert A category.
So it was a tremendous ask, not any normal ask. This was the kind of most ridiculous ask and pressure we could have placed on the students.
That pressure was released after their first performance.
I didn't really expect us to make it in finals at all, and like much less get like a really high score.
In first place with a score of 88.7 is Eagle High School. So not only do we have a good first run, like watching it unfold in real time, it was like, that really couldn't have gone better for our first run, like ever.
That first run put them in the final round.
It was like, oh, it's getting real. Because like I expected to get like 5th or 6th and not make it to finals.
And after competing together for just the second time ever,
I was just hoping that we did as good as I thought.
and you did.
Mm-hmm.
They won that too.
Receiving the gold medal with a score of 92.0, Eagle High School.
I had no clue what was going to happen, and I was expecting 2nd or something like that. Never competed before, yeah.
And then won the whole thing.
Yeah.
Kind of like Christmas morning in the spring.
Like 100 times, like more than anything you'd ever imagine.
While medals.
A lot of hard work put into a little medal, but it means a lot.
And a big trophy are great mementos to take home. Rob hopes they hold on to something bigger.
Like even after Dayton, like it's like there's a confidence in you that did not exist before we left. Can you feel that in yourself and like feel that in the people around you?
Still.
G to the end.
They're gonna savor this win.
Dayton 2024 WGI Percussion World Championship.
For a little longer. Like of the world.
Of the whole world. It's crazy.
Of the world. Rob, the percussion director, says they also got a banner for winning the world title. He's not sure, though, if they're going to hang it in the halls at Eagle High School or just put it up in the music room. So how do you follow up a world championship? Reagan told us they work harder and they become better. As for returning to the WGI competition next year, that has yet to be decided. But if you heard by the songs, they're playing Christmas music. They do have their winter concert list, set list that is, all ready to go.
beautiful, and we have so many great opportunities to enjoy some of the dark sky reserves and opportunities to check out some of those stars right in our backyard in a lot of places in Idaho. But right now we are seeing some light showers in the distance from Twin Falls, things looking much on the light side. You could see some of that moisture starting to work its way into the Magic Valley area. However, I think it will not make it quite to Twin Falls, and if it does, it should be very much on the light side. So overall, this big center of circulation with the low pressure should likely pull back on some of those showers, likely just skimming the area of Twin Falls. And we are expecting warmer temperatures and lighter winds for the next few days, so a little bit less of those moisture chances, which is good news. Nice, comfortable temperatures are on tap, which is good timing because the weekend is right around the corner, so that's what we'll be looking at for that. But for tomorrow, again, more sunshine. We're jumping about 10 degrees for some of those high temperatures tomorrow. We do have a chance of some light showers once again in Twin Falls tomorrow and some more breezy conditions in that area, but overall, we'll continue to see the chances of warming as a high pressure ridge continues to build over the northwest. So again, that sets us up really well for the weekend. We're even talking about 70s and 80s for some of those highs in valley locations. You could see Mother's Day is on Sunday, and we're expecting to be right around that lower 80 mark. So really wonderful weather, and you can see those warmer temperatures will be sticking around as well.
All right, we got a couple of comments about our abortion trafficking story that we did today. That's before the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals deciding on whether or not it is legal, as Idaho wrote it. This one from Cliff has a couple of these comments. You can't take a minor across the state line without parents' permission now, period, for any reason. And Scott says, I thought any child, regardless of the reason, taken across state lines or city line for that matter without the parent's permission is considered child trafficking. Correct me if I'm wrong. This bill has to do directly with abortion. If the purpose is, if you call up somebody and say, hey, we're going to go across state lines, or don't tell them that, but nothing happens, well, there's no crime committed, kind of thing. The point is, if you go across the state lines with the purpose of getting an abortion, you tell them we're just going across state lines, but they don't know about the abortion part, that's where the crime is committed. You could take a girl across state lines, but if you get that abortion, that is where the crime is committed. Without telling the parents. Taking them across anyway without telling the parents, yes, that's called trafficking or kidnapping. And that was discussed in the Idaho House a couple of times. Nobody could really define it. They thought about putting it under the child trafficking law that's already in place, but this has to do specifically with getting an abortion without parents' permission. Can you point me to where I find information other than the name of people I will be voting on? I can't find anything on precinct committee people or county commissioners in District 1. We can only provide what we're given or what's available. There's dozens and dozens of precinct committee member votes of our elections out there, so you kind of have to do your own research. Love the story on the Eagle Percussion kids. Had to raise money, tens of thousands on their own. They are fabulous. That's one of those cases where it kind of helps to live where you live.